Welcome to GrassRoot Ohio, conversations with everyday people working on important issues here in Columbus and all around Ohio. I'm Carolyn Harding, and today I'm talking with Chuck Lynd and Lynn Stan with Simply Living, a community organization that celebrates and connects people to learning opportunities that promote community sustainability, environmental awareness, and our local economy through educational outreach and partnerships within our community. Chuck Lynd is an educator, environmentalist, activist, an advocate for locally owned businesses, and co leader of the Ohio Coalition for Public Banking. He is a founding board member of Simply Living, serves on the board of the Ohio Sustainable Business Council, and the advisory committee for Elevate Northland. Chuck is married to Sheila Fox, and together they volunteer and contribute to grassroots movements working to make our community more resilient and less dependent on the interests of corporate monopolies. Lynn Stan, born and raised in Columbus, has always felt lucky to wear these tags. A twin, an Old Town East resident, an Eastmore High School graduate, business and arts administrator, local entrepreneur, connectician, and the one who married Charlie Einhorn, who was part of the energy that created Comfest and the Hot Times Festival. Lynn is a board member for Simply Living, and her 2021 mantra is assets, alliances, and actions. All help make a compassionate and sustainable community. Welcome, Lynn, and welcome, Chuck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Simply Living was founded in 1992, almost 30 years ago. What was the impetus to create this compassionate, sustainable community hub in Central Ohio? Chuck, why don't you give us the rundown of what made you start it?
I'm the logical person to, of course, I was one of the founding board members. So I was there at the foundation, and I'm sorry, Marilyn Welker is the founding mother of Simply Living. And back in 1990, we had an amazing turnout at Whetstone Park for the 20th anniversary of Earth Day. And Marilyn attended that. We were just totally blown away that 20,000 people showed up. And Marilyn had the impulse then to think, whoa, this is amazing. People are really thinking about their actions, their lifestyle, what difference is it going to make in the earth and saving the earth, blah, blah, blah. So she came up with the idea of let's form an organization that focuses on lifestyle changes. What decisions do I make in my life that affect the environment? So, kind of a new Simply Living, referencing the fact that it's kind of a new community, a new culture, a new way to think about where my food came, what kind of food do I eat? What impact does that have on the environment? Am I eating meat or not meat or local meat? What kind of energy, what kind of choices do I make about getting around town? Do I live closer to work? Do I drive an efficient car or no car? Ride a bike? All of these factors, how do you get around all these choices that we make every day? Where do we shop? Do we shop locally? Blah, blah, blah. Though that was the original impulse for the organization. But over 30 years, things have changed a bit, and we've evolved more toward paying attention to, let's say, policies at the local or national level. So people realize that, yes, we collectively can make a difference in terms of the choices we make, but we would also love to have more. We're kind of the grassroots level, and Lynn likes to talk about the grass tops. So we want the people who are at the making the decisions, which it could be us, but we want to communicate and get this agenda on the policy table so we can have people at the Columbus City Council, the mayor, the governor, the president, our legislators, all making decisions that relate to paying attention to the environment. This is a big issue. And of course, there's many issues that have surfaced over the years, and we can maybe talk about some of those later, but
Definitely.
need good policies.
Lynn, how did you get involved with Simply Living, and how long have you been involved, and what's your capacity? I know you're on the board.
I think I got involved really back in '90, probably following after that Earth Day event, because I was there, and I kind of been active in involved in off and on over the years. Like I would come to things, but it was really when Connie Everett was on the board that I really realized that, wow, Comfest and Simply Living have so much in common. And I always say, Comfest celebrates it for 2.5 days and Simply Living works on it for all year long. And by seeing that Connie and trying to connect what the spirit and purpose side of Comfest through her involvement in Simply Living really set my thinking about, well, maybe that's something I could do and would do. And then when Connie left the board, and then I was asked to join the board, not because of that, but just along that line, then I was very happy to kind of get involved, because it is, I'm a connectician. So when you have an organization like Simply Living that is really talking about all these unusual types of subjects, then it really just is exciting. And then I see so many different ways that people can connect, and where it's speaking for them, but it's also speaking about them and speaking about those businesses or those individuals that are trying to make change and whatnot. So I find that part really exciting. Plus, I'm a huge Chuck fan. He knows that.
Okay, so that's what I'll continue. I didn't know, Lynn, you've been involved that long. And I have known Chuck primarily from my work with the Columbus Community Bill of Rights, which has been around for about 8 years. And you were one of the first groups to embrace us and support us and continue to do so. And we'll talk more about that a little later. But as Lynn well knows, and most people that work with you, Chuck, he is more than the Energizer Bunny. I mean, there's nothing simple about Chuck's work as an activist. It is very, very diverse and just amazing. So I'd like you to talk about some of the projects that you are working on right now with Simply Living, and what you're focused on besides lobbying and trying to change policies. What are some of the tangible things that the people that are involved with Simply Living are participating in? Let's start with you, Lynn.
I would say right now, because of the city end of the month is accepting feedback on the climate action plan. That is something that we've been really trying to do, is to host gatherings for people to come together for information. And we're currently working on one more that could happen maybe next week. We're trying to finalize the time by working through Green Spot and the sustainability department at the city, because I haven't really heard the city make a presentation. So because of some things I'm trying to do in the Near East Side, it took me to the Green Spot and having this conversation of sustainability. And so we think that we will be able to do one more presentation specifically about the climate action plan. The city itself is doing one on March 28th with the impact group, I believe. But maybe I can give you the links for that for later for people to check into it. And I think the other thing that we're really trying to do is there's been a lot of initiatives during COVID of how do you find people that are local, businesses that are local. And that's been an ongoing challenge of Simply Living. And it really goes back to SOLE, S-O-L-E, support our local economy, sustain Ohio local economy, whatever you want to make those little S-O-L-E stands for. But it's also a way to try and work on a database that is about local businesses. And then in our dream is also to overlap on that, where some of their efforts to be more sustainable and being green along the process too. So that's a little snippet. Oh, I'm sorry, the cat's here. Little snippet of our effort to trying to do a database, and that's really in conjunction with the Ohio Sustainable Business Council and some others too. So that's a good example. Is we do a lot of things that really involve other outside resources that come to the table and work with us. So
it sounds like you ally yourself with a lot of groups. Like you said, you're a connectician. And I am curious because this is a Central Ohio hub, how you guys can impact all of grassroots in Ohio. Chuck, why don't you take that one on? How can all folks in Ohio benefit?
Yeah. Um, Let me go back a little bit and pick up on Lynn's comment about SOLE, SOLE, support our local economy was the original concept. And we had a grant from the Columbus Foundation, about $15,000. And we worked for 7 years on this idea that connecting local business with sustainability. Okay, people don't always make that connection. Yeah, you make choices, but the shopping local was one thing, but eating local was another, and banking local was another, and investing local. We were allied with the Economic and Community Development Institute, which makes microloans to small businesses. And there's a way for you to invest your money locally right here in actually statewide now because ECDI is statewide. They have offices around the state and people in Ohio can take for example, a CD, take it out of circulation and take that $3,000, $5,000 and put it in the Invest Local Ohio Fund that ECDI operates. All of that money will then be invested in small locally owned businesses. Now, what's the connection? We did what we call a meta-analysis. There's a group called Civic Economics that fortunately is, they're a nonprofit, but they make all their data and studies available. And they've done these studies around the country of cities, counties, states, showing how purchasing locally keeps more money in the local economy. And we have a little card that reflects that little conclusion from that study, which basically says in Franklin County, if we just shifted our shopping 10% from chain stores to locally owned businesses, it would save $312 million approximately and create 5,000 new well-paying jobs.
Wow.
So that's just 10%. So what the message of that is, and that's a generalization, of course. There's lots of different ways. Some take more money out of the local economy and put it more into the investors or the supply chains or whatever. But locally owned businesses invest locally. They market and advertise locally. They use their own accountants, their own attorneys and advertising people. It's all local and keeps the money circulating locally, which makes our community more resilient, more able to deal with services to all people and more taxes. So that's the connection. More resilient communities, more wealth, more able to take care of our citizens. So that's an area that really makes the connection pretty clear to people, but still it's an issue. So we've kind of switched in recent last 2 or 3 years by collaborating with the Ohio Sustainable Business Council, and because they are statewide, and they are also partners with us in a new initiative called our Ohio Public Banking Coalition. Banking is a key part of this thing. One of the things that we've done in the United States is we've had only private banking. Very little of the public. There is a state, North Dakota, does they have a public bank. Your tax monies in North Dakota go to a deposit in a public bank, which acts as a kind of banker's bank and makes loans available to community banks and credit unions. So this is an opportunity for spreading that concept, that model to not just states, but to cities, counties, any municipal government where taxes are collected. Why not put some of those? We're not saying completely get rid. Private banks are welcome to do their work. But if you want to bank in the public interest and to do things like invest in affordable housing, invest in renewable energy, invest in healthcare, more even renegotiating the terms of student loans where students are so handicapped by the inability to buy a house or start a business. So all that can be done with lower interest rates. You can invest in small businesses, lower interest rate, and support local agriculture, urban
Chuck,
agriculture. I
let
know
me
I'm
just
going
give
on
a
and on.
station ID. This is Carolyn Harding with GrassRoot, Ohio, and I'm talking with Lynn Stan and Chuck Lind of Simply Living. And when I think about you, Chuck, I do think about local, local, and I think about local banks. When I think about you, Lynn, I think about connection, and sustainability and the arts. And Chuck, do you want to finish up talking about the bank situation or the sustainable business? Because I interrupted you.
That's okay. I was just about to wrap up, just to say that we've held two town halls with the Ohio Sustainable Business Council, and we've been recruiting other collaborators. For example, Regionomics, we're looking at affordable healthcare results as an anti-poverty group that we're looking at becoming part of our sponsors or partners as we move statewide to expand our base. And there's a new, I'll say one thing real quick, any citizen, anybody interested in this concept of investing in our local economies, our local communities, can go to, it'll be available real soon if it's not already, called friendsofpublicbanking.org. And there's a little explanation of public banking, and anybody can, we need concerned citizens who are aware to push our legislators and our representatives to adopt community banking, public banking. Why? Because the big banks don't like it. And so we have a habit already of doing it a certain way. We need to change that model. So we want concerned citizens to push our representatives to say, no, we want banking in our interest and you need to make some changes.
What again is that website?
Friends of Friends of Community Banking. I'm sorry, friendsofpublicbanking.org. We can put that in the chat.
Okay. Now, Lynn, you say what's important to you for Simply Living is assets, alliances, and actions. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think that I did not make it up. There's a wonderful guy that Chuck hooked up with out in the Washington, the West Coast, and he's in a community. And he had a whole series of talking about whether it's farming or looking at land that might be owned by somebody, and it should be more public use. So, for example, he sees at this school, for people coming home, have to walk really a long way around because there's a certain piece of land that is public land that is fenced off and not very safe to walk through. So by recognizing that asset was in the way of other people not being able to, enjoy their space, they worked with the city and they made it much more part of a public walkway. So they didn't have sidewalks, so they were actually walking not in a very safe way. So that to me was identifying an asset, forming the alliances, and together you can make an action and make change. And so I think that is really the most of it is, it can't be just the neighbors doing things, because I live in Old Town and we got tons of issues. So in our town, in our area, the commissions are making a lot of decisions because there's so much housing going on. So in the gardens that are going on. So that to me is the assets is how do we audit what we have and who is involved, and how do we find ways to work together so we can all appreciate. That's really what those three come up down to.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Another thing that I know that you are making alliances with coming up soon is you're working with the Ohio Community Rights Network on a film series called the Democracy Film Series. Can you talk about this series? Let's start with you, Chuck.
Yes, Bill Lyons, who's the president of the Ohio Community Rights Network, contacted us because we've done a whole series in the past of what we call documentaries, films, and local solutions. And so we have been doing this for many years, looking at films, getting together a panel, and then talking about how we can address that issue. So Bill Lyons knows that we're reclaiming our democracy from this corporate influence, undue corporate interest in and how we do things. So he came to us because we've had experience doing that and promoting. So together we can both promote this film. We can share cost of licensing this series of films. The first one is called "What is Democracy?" And that's coming up March 28th, real soon. And the next one in the series is help me, Lynn. Invisible Hand, which is about the rights of nature, which is a great concept that communities need to recognize that, and it's famous because the Lake Erie is a great example of a local ecosystem that should have the right to thrive and be a lake without pollution and et cetera, and needs legal standing. We need to reinvent our legal system to recognize this nature. We're humans have rights, but also nature, because those two are connected. So we were happy to join in with this process and look forward to watching the film, and then having the director and leaders talk about how this is being addressed in our communities. So that's how that started.
Lynn, can you tell folks how people can tune in to watch these films?
Well, they will be on the Simply Living site. I'm sure in other places too. And there'll be a click through. And I believe we've come to, it will be free, but donations are asked, just because that seems to work well overall. And we definitely, accessibility is just so important. And the third movie is 2040, correct? Or maybe.
That's separate from the Community Rights Network, but
Okay, gotcha.
but
So,
yes, we're looking at. You go ahead and talk about it.
So there's a film 2040, and I had just seen it on a film festival that was out of Chicago, One World Film Festival, and it's great. It's really well done about looking at what do the youth want in the future, what is currently existing here now, and how will we will all be better if we start building on that and making those more of situations and grander. So it was a very, very, very moving. And I think that is definitely one thing that Simply Living has done in pivoting is taking things online. I mean, I can't think of how many different panels Chuck has put together about different issues, or having people to see movies that were already out being circulated, but being able to come together and talk about it. And so.
Okay, so once again, people can go to simplyliving.org.
Correct.
And it's clearly marked for the Democracy film series, or how is it marked?
It is, I believe it's up there now, correct, Chuck? So the first one is up, or?
It's in our newsletter for sure. So if you go to simplyliving.org and click on, well, it'll start spewing forth the events. And these events are in our calendar. And so you can find them there. And you can also find them at the Ohio Community Rights Network. So you can Google that. And they have a new flyer, which we're going to be putting up soon, about the next films. So and I have a weekly blog that we put together every week that includes updates in our calendar, and not just our events, but all sorts of community events that relate to becoming more sustainable and resilient as a community.
Okay, excellent. And this first film is what day? Sunday, or what day?
Sunday, March 28th, 2 p.m. And like so many, now that we've have to pivot, as they say, to online, they typically give you 24 hours to see the movie ahead of time and then hit the discussion. You can do it either way. You can, but we decided to give people the option to watch it. In other words, you sign up, we send you the link. You can watch the film 24 hours ahead of the discussion, and then tune in at 2 p.m. on Sunday the 28th, or the following April event is April 25th, I think, Sunday, 2 p.m. Kind of making that a series of easy to remember dates.
Excellent. Okay. So folks can tune into their website to see all the things that Simply Living is providing. I think, like I said, local. Think local, and connection, and working with all grassroots organizations, because you not only help folks in sustainability, but also in social justice as well. You're involved in, and I'm sort of, as Grassroot Ohio, I have that same mission to connect grassroots activists that are working for justice in all areas. So I really appreciate what you do. And I'm curious, you are a nonprofit, and how are you funded? And are most of your folks volunteers?
Yes, most of them are volunteers, a volunteer board, volunteer committees, and some people choose to become members. Okay, they can pay $20, $25 and become a member, or they can pay $10 a month or $5 a month. We're happy to have supporting members, and businesses, local businesses, join as members at the business level, which is $100 or more. We have different levels. So those are the two primary sources. We also sometimes get grants. We're working on some grants right now as we speak. So we're not a big organization. We have a part-time director, and part-time staff. So we need support if we can get it, and we get some support like from the $5 donations or whatever at a film that we do. So there's a variety of sources, and you mentioned the activism. I did want to underscore that people come to Simply Living, they want to simplify their lives. They want to, maybe they're meditating and they're doing Reiki and they're healing themselves and the planet. But we also have social activists, and many people want to green the earth. That's one of our main themes. And we have a lot of people who are activists. I myself have gone to DC, been arrested for democracy issues. We've gone to protest both locally and nationally with Bill McKibben's 350.org organization. We partnered with them, and we've organized demonstrations locally. So we're definitely have a group of activists. And I love the quote from Van Jones, who says, the fate of humanity is now in the hands of activists becoming spiritual and spiritual people becoming active.
Love it. Now I have less than 1 minute. So I want you to give me what you're grateful for and what gives you hope. All right. And keep it short, Chuck. All right, Lynn, you're first. What you're grateful for and what gives you hope.
I'm grateful to live in a city like Columbus that really is, it is unusual. It is now the 14th largest city. But I think I've always found that to be exciting all my whole life. And so I'm grateful for. And I'm sorry, what was this next part?
What gives you hope?
Honestly, the next generation, and then by them getting more active. And I think that, hey, Comfest covers 4 generations, okay? That means a lot. That means that there is that many different generations of people who are out there now trying to be active. And I like being inspired by the younger ones.
Thank you. How about you, Chuck, real quick? What are you grateful for and what gives you hope?
I'm grateful for Lynn and all the people who are in Columbus that we're connected with that are trying to make the changes that need to happen. I think there's a growing awareness. I'm grateful for the fact that the internet and the ability to communicate our ideas and what needs to be done to a larger audience is great. I have children and grandchildren, and
what gives you hope?
My children and my grandchildren who are working to do the same kind of things I'm doing. I think if you look at the data, it's terrible.
That's all the time we have, Chuck.
Okay.
I know you could fill a whole week of good things. Thanks so much today, y'all. Simplyliving.org.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Bye.
In addition to our Friday 5 p.m. broadcast on WGRN.org, Grassroot Ohio will now air on Sundays at 2 p.m. on WCRSFM.org, 92.7, 98.3 FM Columbus, and at 4 p.m. on WEJP-LP, 107.1 FM in Wheeling, Moundsville, West Virginia. You can also find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, everywhere. And thanks for joining us.